It's time to recalibrate what we think the Arizona Cardinals defense is capable of doing. What's the ceiling with a revamped defensive front seven, including Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, Johnny Venerable.
Plus, Fran Duffy, the Duff Man, is going to join us.
Duff
Who
man.
is the ideal selection now for the Arizona Cardinals at pick 16? And Bo and I, it's mock draft, Big Five 2.0. We give you the 5 players ahead of pick 16 that we think are in play. PHNX Cardinals starts now. Hey, welcome in. Live from Studio K, presented by our friends at Circle K. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, the premier, #1 Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe, friends. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Brack with Damon, Dawg in Studio K. Speaking of our friends at Circle K, it's the presenting sponsor today. Download the Circle K app today. Find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Circle K. Our friends at CircleK.com. Terms and conditions apply. Look at those goodies.
Look at that.
He was snacking on them before the show today. A little Circle K Jumbo Ranch, Brack.
That's right, jumbo sunflower seeds. It's baseball season, so I'm just I got some seeds. It's not bad. You know, I got to say this. Speaking of baseball season, Johnny Venerable batting 1,000 and making me smile every time he drops the elongated live where he screams it. The day that it doesn't make me smile, I think it's time to get out of this business. I think it's time to just shut it down.
Yeah. I don't know. This summer, when you're on no sleep with a newborn, right, and I do the live from Studio K, you might just walk up and leave. Where's the title?
Very possible. It's very possible. What's going on, Shaft? Brian, K2, Claymore Jones. I like that. Kyle. I like Jacob also in the chat. It's a full house. Lorenzo, Ken Weber, G. Williams, Taylor, Alec, the entire squad. Nacho Libre, Jean-Paul, Edward De Dios, G. Willikers, Mike Meyer, Han Shot First. Too many people to name, but I'm going to try to name them all. Unbelievable.
Name them all. Like them
Marley
all.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Loaded show. Sometimes we say like loaded show and then we're milking it, right? Today's a flipping loaded show. We got so much to talk about, so much to dive in. People still trickling in. Welcome, friends. Hello. Fran Duffy's going to join us later in the show. We're going to talk about where the Cardinals stand at pick 16. But even before the surplus of draft picks, the rookies come into play in really less than 4 weeks' time at the NFL draft. Where do the Arizona Cardinals stand? How much better are the Arizona Cardinals defensively compared to a year ago? A year ago, by the way, top 15 in points per game allowed, got better as the season went on defensively with not a lot of talent. And now you look at this team, and we're going to break it all down. They have added 3 defensive linemen in free agency. All are going to start, most notably yesterday, Calais Campbell. Before we take a look at what we feel like is the new base defense for the Cardinals, at least before the draft, what's the ceiling for this unit now? Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, and then guys like Baron Browning, Zaven can slide into more traditional backup roles. Like on the surface level, especially playing the AFC and the NFC South, where do you see the Cardinals defensively?
Well, I mean, defensively, just through free agency, they were able to add over 100 total quarterback pressures. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Not
added
bad.
To a group where there was very little. You had Zaven Collins, who led the way for the Arizona Cardinals with a 31 total pressures, including his 5 sacks. So where the Arizona Cardinals fell short last season, you know, as much as we thought that the defensive side of the football was the more consistent group between the offense and defense, I think that they are able to notch and ratchet up the pressure significantly more with the additions of Sweat, Calais Campbell, and Dalvin Tomlinson. I mean, Dalvin Tomlinson alone, 11% pressure rate coming from the big man from the interior. Same thing for Calais, also a plus run defender. And then Josh Sweat, 50 plus of those total pressures you can add to your pass rush, and then set up your rest of your rotation up for success, hopefully a rookie. But, they almost dead last the last 2 years as far as pressure rate and pass rush win rate. And now that's going to change. Like, I think even if they're in the middle of the pack, given how they were able to overcome that last year, I think this is a defense that easily could play in the top half of this league. I'm gonna have to see how the rest of the offseason goes, including the draft, before I start making like wild statements that they could be like a top 10 group. But I think they certainly are on the path, on the trajectory, especially with the defensive mind that's going to be calling the plays.
So this is not good pass podcasting. This has not been a good pass rush either, but this is not good podcasting. I'm going to pull up the personnel defensively that the Arizona Cardinals had when Jonathan Gannon took over in 2023. The projected defensive personnel that would be starting for this team. Okay. Is everybody ready? I'm just going to go top to bottom. This is where Gannon and Ossenfort had to start. The starting defensive line, Kevin Strong, Lecky Fotu, Jonathan Ledbetter, Dennis Gardeck, Kazir White, Josh Woods, friend of the program, nice guy, came on the show, Zaven Collins, Antonio Hamilton, Marco Wilson, and then Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker. That was 2 years ago. And then, Ojulari played a little bit. We had some backups get in. Garrett Williams came in around Halloween. But the front seven in particular, a legitimate horror show. Kevin Strong, Lecky Fotu, Jonathan Ledbetter, Gardeck, Kazir White, respectfully, Josh Woods, Zaven Collins. Unbelievable. No singular player in that unit, minus Dennis Gardeck, eclipsed 5 sacks.
Not good enough, right? Not even close. I mean, when we talk about the defensive line, where you've got, one of the few holdovers from a recent Keim draft class like Lecky Fotu, it just wasn't when he was playing significant snaps. He's now on his second organization post Arizona Cardinals, where they let him, go walk free of free agency. They knew that, like, hey, like, we know that we need to get better, but we know that what you like these players are, and most of those guys have exited the organization.
Yeah.
And now they're in a place roster wise to where they feel like they can go to all areas of, using their offseason tool chest, free agency, the draft, picking up guys who weren't going to hit the open market, but were released by their team. They're pretty much uncovering every stone, because they know for third try here, third season, they can't be undermanned any longer. It costs them too much. I mean, if they had the personnel that they have today, last season, we talked about it, and they probably are able to squeak out 2 of those games that they lost close last year.
I mean, the offense, by the way, looking at this list, it's like largely the same. Kyler and James Conner and Trey and Paris and Yelda. Like the offense, I mean, you're going on like 3 years continuity. The defense, you literally took a wrecking ball, a sledgehammer to it. So I love the comments coming in. It's like, that sounds like a high school team. I love my guy, Hanshot First, just a list full of scruff McGruffs, Dirt McGurr. It's like, I love Budda and Jalen and Kazir White. That unit is so rough. I mean, Zaven Collins was their marquee pass rusher on paper, right? And Dennis Gardeck, before he got injured this year. Let's take a look now at the revamped pre-draft depth chart for the Arizona Cardinals. Damon, if we could, the defensive line almost completely new. And then you include Josh Sweat opposite Baron Browning. Here's what I'll say. At this time last year, none of those front 5 players were on the team. Baron Browning was in Denver. Sweat was in Philly. Darius hadn't been drafted yet. Tomlinson was in Cleveland. Calais started in Atlanta. So the entirety of the front 5 has been completely redone. Your thoughts?
Better.
Yes.
Much better, right? And only one of them did you really have to utilize any of your precious draft capital, right? The rest of that's what I really like what Monti Ossenfort's done this offseason. As much as we talked about, a potential trade being in play, he's been able to do this while maintaining his entire draft capital that he came in with, 6 picks. And, we can talk about Trey Hendrickson later in the show, but you've been able to do that just through free agent deals. And the only one that's like really significant is Josh Sweat for $76 million, 40 plus million guaranteed. But it's, essentially a 2-year deal. You were able to add 3 starting caliber guys to make an impact, to pressure opposing quarterbacks. And they all have a tremendous track record of doing so. Also, what I like about him is the versatility. Like, probably Dalvin Tomlinson is the guy that has the biggest question marks as far as against the run, even though he said in his introductory presser, he understands, like, in order to set up pass rush situations, you got to stop the run first. But like Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat are set up very well to help the Cardinals and where they kind of struggled in stopping opposing run games.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like, these guys aren't just here to pressure, right? The Cardinals' run defense was not very good last year. I mean, think about what happened in Carolina. That cost them a postseason chance. The slim chance of them still going to the playoffs, they had to win out. I mean, Chuba Hubbard's went for about $160 on the ground. You think about that game against the Seattle Seahawks late in the year. They didn't have Kenneth Walker. Charbonnet went for $150. Like, this myth that the Cardinals did everything right defensively, like, the best thing the Cardinals do under Nick Rallis is limit opposing touchdowns.
Right.
Like, you got a real shot based on what? Schematics alone with Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon in the film room with you. But that can only take you so far. It really took the Cardinals to 8 wins last year. I mean, how many true shootouts did they win last year? Maybe you can call Miami a shootout. That's probably about it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time it was either lopsided wins because the offense and the defense were clicking, or you got just enough of the offense and the defense did enough, right?
Yeah.
The Cardinals were not in a position with either side of the ball to have a very big margin for error. The defense couldn't have a bad quarter. The offense couldn't turn the ball over.
Right.
I mean, both sides of the ball with these additions now, and hopefully in the draft, you just give yourself, like the Vikings last year were just so loaded with talent. Sam Darnold could dick around for a quarter and they would be okay, right? The Cardinals need to get to that point. Like, the last 2 years while building this team, we knew, save for like the Philly game 2 years ago when that team imploded and the Cardinals were down 21-3 and they rallied. Those games are few and far between. Most of the time it was either the Cardinals had to play perfect and win, or if they lapsed, like against the Packers and the Commanders, it got ugly quick.
Yeah, it got ugly quick. And you couldn't have, like, in that Washington game, I can't remember. There wasn't a turnover. It was just 3 and outs.
Yeah.
There were 3 and out. And like, you just couldn't have 3 and out and then put your defense right back on the field because of, where they were. Like, at that point, they were giving up, a ton of rushing yards. And we were quickly finding out that Jaden Daniels and that Washington offense was for real.
Yeah.
But when they were going up against the big boy offense and for whatever reason, they're putting their defense back on the field, you would see the ugly side of that. Now, like, a lot of the credit that we give Nick Rallis and his group last year was that bend, don't break approach and the ability to bend and not break. Like, against the Chargers, the entire game, it felt like Justin Herbert and that team were just moving the football between the 20s, but they couldn't find pay dirt in the end zone. And that was the deciding factor. And that's why you it was a defense that would endure itself to you. And they had 3 straight games at home where they didn't give up a touchdown. And that's unbelievable given the personnel, to where now you look at it, it's like, this is a defense that's capable of doing it, obviously schematically and from a play calling standpoint. You like the young up and coming players. I'll include D-Rob, especially you like the guys in the secondary and Garrett Williams and Max Melton.
Yeah.
But you also like their ability, like, where they're going to be able to come in and stifle offenses. They're going to be able to get off the field in 3 plays or less and give this offense more opportunities to where they can show, and they're going to have to, and that's going to be another conversation for down the line. that this continuity is well worth it.
Even bad units in the NFL defensively get defensive touchdowns, right? Marco Wilson famously had a pick six Andy Dalton on Thursday Night Football. Like, normally teams, you can luck into a defensive touchdown. Yeah. The Cardinals did not have one defensive touchdown last year. Think about that. They played.
One was nullified because.
Right. But I'm talking about what counted on the scoreboard. They played 17 games and had 0 defensive touchdowns. So I think a large part is they played a lot of good quarterbacks last year. Jaden Daniels and Jordan Love and Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford. Geno lit him up. Like, that's not going to repeat this year, right? Like, we finally see now with this front, which, by the way, anybody sitting here, we got 520 people watching live, hit that like button, that they're not going to add an edge rusher in the top 50 of this group. It's just depending on which one they pick, which one they like. We'll break down their top 30 visits later in the show, and we got Garofolo tomorrow from the NFL Network that'll hopefully give us some more insight. As great as this unit is, like, Baron Browning is either going to be a part-time starter or eventually a backup to whomever they draft.
Right.
That's the plan right now. So knowing that this unit exponentially is better on the front end, which makes Garrett Williams a better player, which makes Max Melton a better player. Taylor Demerson's a star in the making. Right now, this has a chance to be the best defense this team has had since 2014 with Todd Bowles. That's on paper with the schedule that they have. And again, like, they don't play a lot of elite quarterbacks this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year, it was a who's who. And I'm counting the division. Purdy, Darnold, right? We watched Sam Darnold last 2 games. Stafford's about it. And kid out of Houston, CJ Stroud. I mean, it's a lot of Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be a little bit of Cam Ward. It's going to be a little bit of Michael Penix, right? And Derek Carr. Let's go. Sign me up for that. Dak returning. I feel pretty good about this defense. If I had to bet right now, I would say it's a top 10 defense on paper.
Bryce Young with the ability to pressure him with this defense.
Revenge game. Cards revenge game.
Yeah. A little Bryce Young meets 6'8" Calais Campbell with an outstretched hand, hopefully batting down some of those balls that he was able to just fire off and find, windows. Credit to him. But like, I agree with your point. I think just conservatively, just on paper, this is a solid defensive front, right? They added to it. Like, if you just get moderate production from the 3 that you added, you're a better defense today than you were yesterday. But and then we're going to get into the land of if BJ Ojulari comes back and you can add him into the defense, if he is that double-digit sack guy that they envisioned, oh boy, like, look at where this defense can go, or what they do with one of their top 50 picks. I mean, and then you really get that rotation humming, and it's no longer just a rotation of ham sandwiches like it's been the last 2 seasons, where you're relying on a guy that's not capable of getting the pressure you need in Zaven Collins and Baron Browning, whereas, like, if they can come in and they can pin their ears back, or they can do what they're good at, you've got the guys that are proven commodities as far as getting quarterbacks on the ground.
BJ Ojulari is an unproven entity that is all potential, and now this allows him to lean into his potential. These last 2 years, since the first 2 years,
pressure of showing up. Yeah,
right. Last year, we were doing a broadcast. It was the kiss of death. We listed, like, the guys that they could not afford to lose, and he was like number 1 defensively, and then they lost him, right? And then it affected the entirety of their pass rush. The pass rush was gone. This year, it's like one of these players we've outlined gets injured. They have the depth to withstand it. It's about damn time. We got Fran Duffy right around the corner after the Calais Campbell signing, after Dalvin Tomlinson and Josh Sweat. Who does he peg the favorite for the Arizona Cardinals at pick 16? That's coming up. But first, my favorite betting app is our friends at Bet365. They're never ordinary. You can't get draft props yet, but here's what you can do. You can dabble right now with a 100% parlay boost ahead of the Final Four this weekend. Double your winnings with Bet365. Download the app. Use the bonus code PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer. Find out why it's never ordinary. They've got 90 million users worldwide, 788,000 events each year, and they do early payouts, NBA, NFL, NHL, and Major League Baseball. It's great to be betting on the diamond this year already. A lot of runs being scored, a lot of money to be made with our friends at Bet365. Again, this offer continuing on. New customers are going to get 150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. All you got to do, open up a new account today, sign up, Use the bonus code PHNX365. Deposit a mere $10. Again, bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365. You got to be 21 years and older. Physically located here in the great state of Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov, Bo, for more info.
Yeah, and a couple more games left on the college hardwood to bet on from Bet365
Yes,
Final Four national championship game. Also, the NBA playoffs right around the corner. Not so fast, Suns. But look, speaking of hardwood floors, our friends over at Empire today, they want to hook you up with beautiful flooring. They are the spot where you want to go shop with convenience with the right product for your needs with quick professional installation with that price match guarantee. They are going to match that price. They're going to get the best place for new flooring. That's Empire today. Of course, they got the copycats, but they can't beat them in quality and, of course, customer service. You're not talking to somebody that was working at Denny's down the street and just wanted to change the scenery. These people know their flooring. Check them out right now. Their philosophy is what they leave out of their selection is important is what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find those perfect styles for you and your dwelling. Plus that virtual floor designer, check it out. Use your smartphone and look what it's going to see in how it's going to look in your setting. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for all the details.
Big thanks to our presenting sponsors. Big thanks to our friends at Empire Today. Almost 600 watching live. Again, drop us a like. We got Fran Duffy right around the corner. I like what I see from the folks in the chat already. The Superchats coming in, and we're going to get to them later on. But speaking of coming in, let's take a look at the updated top 30 visits for the Arizona Cardinals, and we'll have more insight on this mañana with our guy, Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network. But I'm looking at this list right now, of course, Shamar Stewart, edge rusher, Texas A&M, Will Johnson, who we're going to talk about with Fran, cornerback from Michigan, Scatman Scataboo from ASU, Anthony Belton, defensive lineman, presumably a day two pick. Excuse me, offensive line. A day two pick. Oladejo, edge rusher from UCLA, also a day two pick. And then Princely, our guy from Ole Miss, likely a late first, as is Nick Scourton, who I saw Field Yates falling to the Arizona Cardinals in his mock at pick 47. Bo, is there a common theme that you can find with this list if we had to search for one?
Yeah, checking out the edges. Stewart, Oladejo, Princely, Scourton. There are 4 of these 7 that are reported. All guys that are going to come off the edge. And, Phil Yates was a big fan of Scourton. I know our guy Donnie, he hit me up about Scourton. He liked his film from Purdue. He's following a common theme with his teammate from the Aggies there, Shamar Stewart, where production was a bit down. At Texas A&M, is that a product of scheme? But the Cardinals doing their homework, and we know that they want to add an edge in this class, and they are certainly trying to figure out, do they want to spend a premium pick on it, or do they want to lean into the depth of the draft and go day 2 and beyond. I think that they're in a good position now with the addition of Josh Sweat to do it whenever they choose, whenever they feel like time is right. And I think that there's going to be multiple opportunities for them to do that, where last draft it just didn't exist. Like, they had Marv at 4, and then there was a big run on offense, and then there were 3 guys there, and that was about it. And if you look at how the rookie seasons for that class went, there wasn't a big impact makers coming off the edge from the 2024 class. 2025 going to be different,
much better. And you would like to have, in hindsight, a surplus like last year on the flip side for your defensive front. And I think if their preference was made public, I think their preference would be to trade down. I think that's always his preference, especially in a year like this year when, how many true first rounders are there? There might be 16 to 18, but some of those are not positions of need and value for the Arizona Cardinals. You mix in some receivers, both of the tight ends from Michigan and Penn State, respectfully, a running back, right? An off-ball linebacker, a guard. Those guys might have first-round grades or top 25 grades. But do the Cardinals value those positions? And again, like I'll stand on this for the better part of the next 3.5 weeks. I don't think the team values off-ball linebackers early in the draft. We're going to get to Daniel Jeremiah's some notables within his top 50. Jahad Campbell is the 9th best player. Still wouldn't take him at 16. I don't think the Cardinals will take him at 16. Same with any and all guards. Is save for if they trade down far enough and they love the kid from Ohio State or they love the kid from Alabama and they want to take them at like 26, 27, 28. That's one thing. Sticking and picking a guard for Ossenfort at 16, I just don't think is in their wheelhouse. I think they would much rather go with like a Derrick Harmon, or if they had to force a pick, best available edge rusher, there will be 20 to pick from. And I think their preference is to trade down and still go with a premium position. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. It's still edge, D tackle, cornerback, and offensive tackle to me, if you're asking me today on April 2nd.
Yeah. No, I think that there might be a little bit of a misconception as far as, the want to trade down for Monti Ossenfort. Like, I know he's done it with the second round. That's more of a trust in his draft board. And I don't know if, I hope it's not that muddled come 16. Like, if I don't know if it's just me being hopeful that they have a guy or two in mind that is going to be there and that they would, without hesitation, select, that they view as a difference maker on their defense. And it's not just all about there's value in trading down. There's also, I think, value in sticking and picking and getting the best defensive player I guess. I shouldn't just pigeonhole it to the defense. But I think, is there somebody that maybe we don't value as much as they do? But when you saw last year how it transpired as far as the 20s, after Marvin Harrison Jr. was a Cardinal, and you're waiting for the defensive players to go off the board, and then it started to go, and there's rumblings that the Cardinals were eyeing a move up the draft board, and it didn't come to fruition. And then you match it with what's going on in the war room via the Cardinals flight plan episode. It felt like from when Chop Robinson went, the Cardinals were waiting anxiously for Darius Robinson to be there when they were back on the clock at 27. I wonder if there's, I got to imagine there's a couple guys that are going to fit that criteria at 16 that they have no issue taking.
I feel like we will see, though, a drop off in talent compared to last year, where last year, I mean, it was very much a who's who of top 25 picks. Let me just read you the picks 16 through 23 last year. So this is like the sweet spot of where the Cardinals are. Seattle at 16 took Byron Murphy, the first defensive player. The Vikings traded up with Jacksonville to take Dallas Turner. Cincinnati took Amarius Mims, but then the Rams got defensive rookie of the year, Jared Verse. Pittsburgh took Troy Fautanu from Washington. Miami took Chop Robinson. Philadelphia then took Quinyon Mitchell, and then the Jags took Brian Thomas Jr., and the Lions were gifted at 24, Terrion Arnold. They traded up for him with Dallas. So, I mean, a lot of guys that we were mocking within the top 15, 16 last year. I think it's a different kind of draft this year. If this was last year, I really do feel like you could sit back and let an elite player fall to you.
Yeah.
This year strikes me too much like 2021, where the board was picked clean and the Cardinals and the Patriots at 15 and the Cardinals at 16 were kind of left out at the altar. And it's like, what's left? Zaven Collins was a first-round pick, but not anybody. That wasn't a value pick for a lot of people. Najee Harris was in discussion. To me, the smart move is to say, well, if we have similar grades on about 5 to 7 guys, let's go back. Let's try to get another pick. Let's go back and try to get another pick.
Yeah, I don't hate it, but I would like, them to
you don't want to water it down. I get that.
Right. Sure. Right. And I know from class to class, it's different, right? Like last year, it was a true testament to how many offensive players were there in the first, 15 picks.
Right.
So once you started to get to the defensive players, when you went down that list, that's a pretty decent, 20. When you go to the 20s and you got the Terrion Arnolds of the world, and
last year's draft was nuts.
Yeah. You got Brian Thomas Jr. in there. and what we hope Darius Robinson can be at 27. So yeah, I don't know if this is going to yield the same, opportunities, after the top prospects go off the board like last year. We'll see.
A good person to ask about it is our guest joining the show right now, the Duff man himself, Fran Duffy, NFL ALLCITY draft analyst, joining us now. Check out his top 100 draft guide available at gophnx.com. Let's get him on the screen. It's the franchise mode. Fran Duffy joining the show. Fran, we got a loaded segment here we want to break down, but Bo and I are having an open conversation here. Last year's class, a little bit more loaded with top-end talent compared to this year. We're sitting here and we're talking about trade back scenarios for the Arizona Cardinals at 16. I mean, like how many true first round grades do you have on this first round this year?
Yeah, I mean, guys, it's something we talked about. I remember we had this discussion like the very first time I came on the show was that the Cardinals are it is a tough spot in the first round. Just like universally, like looking like team agnostic, you would look at it and say, yeah, it is light in terms of like the true blue chip type of prospects, right? Like the true first round grades. Now, I don't give it like the way I evaluate players. Like I don't necessarily do like round grade. I base mine based off like, all right, this is how I view the player, like, quality starter, good starter, role player, like that kind of thing. But I would say like the top of my list is just lighter than a typical year. Now, basically what that means for a team like the Cardinals and for a team, like you look at the Broncos at 20, the Steelers at 21. Basically, it's going to be one of two things, in that lead up to the Cardinals picking at 15. And, when you get through the meat of the first round, it's going to be one of two things that's going to happen on draft night. Either there's going to be no trades because teams aren't going to find the value to be able to move back. There's not going to be enough teams that want to be able to move up. And so there's just not going to be any trades. Or, and this is what, if you're a Cardinals fan, that's what you're hoping for, right? Is that, you have like the four guys at the very top that, like, all right, like these four guys are going off the board. And then there's a cluster of, we'll call it like 6 or 7 players. And every team is going to have it's going to be, maybe there's like 4 guys that are similar in that cluster of 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But then there's going to be some variety in who those remaining 2 players are. Let's just say it's Shadeur Stewart, right? Let's say you have Shadeur Stewart in that second cluster. Well, you're sitting there if you're the Cardinals, and if that's your guy, and he's fallen. All right, now I want to make a move up. I want to try because he's the only guy left, or he's going to follow us at 15, right? That's the scenario where then now there is that trade up because there's only one guy left in that cluster. It's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. I do think it makes for a very fun and unpredictable night of the draft.
As you look at this, as you play, this weather forecaster with all of the weather, right? And you don't know what to truly expect. But, I mean, you're the one most, set up for success here in figuring out what's going to happen. As far as maximizing 16th overall, what's that look like for the Arizona Cardinals? Does it come in the form of a trade down and increasing capital and then also getting a player maybe in the early 20s? Or is it trading up as you just, use that scenario? Or is it sticking and picking somebody maybe falling into their lap?
I will say more often than not, Bo, when I have done a mock draft exercise, whether it's been one that I've published or just one where I'm like, all right, let me just go through this. I have struggled to find a player that I love for the Cardinals at 16, where like the need matches the quality of player. It doesn't happen every time, but oftentimes it does. And so that means one of two things. Either the Cardinals have a player graded in that spot. It's a situation, like I said earlier, where maybe it's not an area of like dire need, but this is the best player on the board. We're going to take him. Or the last guy in that cluster is available and you make that short move up, or you move back and you try and gain more capital. Now it takes 2 to tango. You need somebody else to want to be able to move up. Right. And so you just have those kind of situations that, Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon have to play through. We know that Monti likes to work the board. We've seen him move down and up and down and up and all in the same round. Maybe it takes something like that, but it's one of those things where you have to play those scenarios out over the next 3 to 4 weeks and just have your plan and just you have to play the draft as it comes to you.
The closer we get, the less certain it seems like, at least early, there's going to be a run on defensive linemen. Whereas I initially thought, well, this is the strength of this draft, and they're going to be going left and right. It's going to be a mirror of last year with the offensive players.
Right.
And then you got guys like Daniel Jeremiah, outside of Abdul Carter and Jalen Walker and Mason Graham, doesn't have a defensive lineman in the top 20, Fran.
Yep.
I mean, the Cardinals signed Calais Campbell yesterday, which, homegrown here. We're excited about that. But does it also read with the tea leaves that you added Calais, you added Dalvin Tomlinson, Sweat as an edge rusher? Is the value not there at 16 for a defensive lineman this year, which is flipping crazy that we even have to pose that question? But in your opinion, like, as you say, apples to oranges, Jalen Walker feels like maybe a Carolina Panther. Mason Graham's going top 10. Abdul Carter's second overall. Who's worth it from a defensive lineman, tackle or edge at 16?
Yeah, and that's what I remember. We talked about this last week, where when it was honestly a similar kind of topic, where like just looking at edge rushers, not even the interior guys, but just looking at edge rushers, and it's like, yeah, like there's talent. It's a good group,
right?
But not a group where I feel convicted about a lot of these guys. All of them have like one caveat with the profile. You have Shamar Stewart's production. You have Mike Green's off-field stuff. You know, you've got lack of athleticism. You have lack of size with Ezeraku. You've got, you know what I mean? Like all of these guys have one clear hole. And that's why when you look at like DJ's top 20, or if you look at, the way that this may play out, it's the same thing at defensive tackle. Like I think everyone pretty much universally feels good about Mason Graham. But then who's next up on your list? You know, is it Kenneth Grant? All right, well, Kenneth Grant, like inconsistent play overall. You know, is it Walter Nolan? Some people have him, going in the top 15. Like I value him as that quality of talent. Not everybody sees it that way. And there's questions, about like the off-field stuff and, the consistency there. Why did it take until this year for him to blow up? So again, you can kind of poke holes in everybody's profile when you look at this group. It's a really talented group. And my guess is there's going to be records set in terms of like amount of defensive linemen that go in the first 50 picks, the amount of defensive linemen that go in the first 2 and 3 rounds, but it's just not going to be like at the very top. And that's just unfortunate for Arizona.
Yeah, with the addition of Calais Campbell, though, and you mentioned those guys, kind of the usual suspects that we've been going through during this draft season, Nolan, Kenneth Grant, you can throw Derrick Harmon's name into that conversation as well. Does it, in your opinion, take the Cardinals out of the running approaching that position in this draft in the first round?
It shouldn't. I think that, you don't want to necessarily say, all right, well, we've got Calais for 1 year. Right. That's going to solve it. What I do love, I mean, honestly, one of the things I love about it is, Calais has been one of the most like well-respected vets. I mean, since he left Arizona, like, even when he was in Arizona, it was like, all right, like this is one of those guys that has the ability to take young players under his wing and kind of show them their way. I actually love the idea. Hey, you know what? We're going to bring in a raw defensive lineman. Like, who better to have him work with on a daily basis than a guy like Calais Campbell? So I don't know that it necessarily says like, oh, like now they go elsewhere. I almost says that now Calais is in position to support this young guy that they do decide to bring in.
Let's talk Will Johnson, because prior to Calais Campbell and prior to the defensive tackle, defensive edge rushers falling in a lot of pre-draft rankings, it was like, well, that's ridiculous. Why would they do that? And they've since used the top 30 visit on the Michigan corner. The value is clearly there. Like, regardless of how I feel, Bo feels about, we won Front-7 players. That's what this draft is about. They have enough corners, right? They've spent a ton of draft capital. The consensus is Will Johnson, unlike a lot of players we talk about, slam dunk top 12, 15 player, if not higher for some teams. What's the scouting report, and how would he fit on a Jonathan Gannon, Nick Wallace defense, in your opinion?
Yeah, when I look at Will Johnson, to me, coming into the year, I was probably lower than consensus from a media standpoint on Will Johnson. And now I'm looking around, I'm like, I think I'm higher than consensus on Will Johnson. I'm like, yeah, this guy's a pretty good player, guys. We kind of forget what he can bring. Now, where I like him best is he is an outside corner that can play in off coverage, read routes, jump throws, make plays on the ball. Like that, to me, like that is him at his very best. I think a lot of people looked at, his size. Oh, he's listed 6'2", 205. This is a press man corner, shot down man to man. Honestly, that's not the way I view Will Johnson. I don't think that's his best trait. I think when you're looking at Will Johnson, there are questions about the speed, the suddenness, the ability to recover, certainly the lack of length. He's got 30-inch arms, which is like the shortest wingspan for a 6'1" corner that we've seen like in the last decade. He's not like your big, long, prototypical press man guy. He's more like lay in the weeds, read routes, jump it, take it to the house. Like that is his game. So I do think that there is that's a skill set that plays well in JG's defense. He's not a guy that offers like position flexibility where I'm going to be able to move him inside, or there are some that I've talked to in the past that will say like maybe down the road he might be a safety because again, like reading stuff from depth, he might be that guy. But right now, like you're going to play him on the outside and just kind of let him read things out. And so I do think that there's a fit, though. It would just be as a pure outside corner in that scheme.
You think he makes it to 16?
I think there's a chance for sure. I mean, I've talked with some that feel like he could be maybe the third corner off the board. And so I think that there's a chance that he is certainly there at 16. Now, I also think there's a chance that he could be off the board at like 9 to New Orleans as well. So I think that there's a wide range. And again, it goes back to the very first thing we talked about, that unpredictability of this round. I think that Will Johnson, there's definitely some variance. There are some people that feel like he could go that high. And I've seen mock drafts and have talked with people who are like, yeah, like he could fall into the 20s. And that's not completely out of the question either.
Looking at your top 100 draft guide, we're breaking down what's worth the 16th overall pick. It's less about necessarily filling a need for this conversation. You've got Will Johnson, 12th overall. Josh Simmons is a guy that maybe we need to reintroduce ourselves, 20th overall. If he did not have the injury and the surgery, is he a firm top 15 pick in your mind?
Yeah, if Will Johnson's healthy, if Josh Simmons is healthy, Josh Simmons isn't on the board for the Cardinals at 16. He's going to go higher than that. He would have been up there with Will Campbell and Armand Membu as like tackle 1 in the class. I think when that's how good the film was in the first chunk of the year. Now, the downside, obviously, he tears the patellar. It's not a clean ACL. It's not a broken fibula. It's not something where it's just like a clean rehab. A torn patellar is that can be a long rehab. It can be a tricky one. And the guys that have been known to like lose some movement and take a little bit of time to bounce back. So that makes it a little bit of a messy projection. The other thing that's unfortunate is that it happened in the game against Oregon in October, which happened to be like the first, like, I don't say like real competition for Simmons in the offensive line for Ohio State, but they didn't play a lot of quality defensive lines before that. And so all of that great tape that we saw, it wasn't against great competition. And so you would say, man, like we just didn't see great tape before this year. When we finally got great tape, it came against lesser level. So I think when you're looking at Simmons, you love what we saw. I think he could play left tackle or right tackle. He started at right tackle at San Diego State before moving to the left side with the Buckeyes. You love the athleticism, like rare movement. The highlights are as good as anybody. It's just there's going to be a little bit of projection there when you're looking at Simmons and kind of pushing him forward.
Yeah, I want to talk about Jahdae Barron in a little bit, just because we've kind of reopened the conversation because there's not such an immense need for defensive linemen any longer. But while we're talking tackles, I believe it was Field Yates put out a 2-rounder today, and he had the Cardinals taking Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. And he also had this idea to put Paris Johnson Jr. back to the right tackle spot, which I disagree with. But what is just your overall assessment of Kelvin Banks Jr. and what his fit would be with Justin Fry and in the Arizona Cardinals offense?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, like when I look at it just like pure film, like give me Simmons all day. I think that's an easy projection for me personally. Now, we talked about why it's a little bit cloudy, a little bit murky with Simmons. With Banks, it's less so. This is a high character kid, 3-year starter at left tackle for the Longhorns. Now, the reason why you would say we're going to move Paris over is that Paris has played right tackle. Banks has only played left tackle in college. So he does not have that proven swing versatility that way. Now, there are some, and I would say, the tape was up and down, this year, especially when you get into the meat of the schedule. He gave up that late sack against Michael Williams and the Georgia Bulldogs that sealed the game for Georgia. You look at some of the best teams on the schedule. Banks had some low moments, and I think that he's got a questionable anchor. I think he needs to get a little bit stronger. I would just me personally, I saw more of like a guy that you would feel comfortable like late round 1, into round 2, as opposed to, because Banks was talked about as like top 5, top 10. And I just, anytime I ever watched him, I never quite saw that quality of player personally. I know Field has always been high on Banks. He and I have talked about him. So I think Field loves Banks. I get it. Like he's really athletic. He's got some strength to it, some power to him rather. I just worry about the anchor, and I think that could be an issue early on.
Talk about the importance of fit. Bo mentioned him. Jada Barron from Texas. I don't see a fit based on your write-up alone. And I haven't watched a lot of Texas football week in and week out. Was originally a slot corner, right?
Yep.
Moved to the outside this year. Cardinals have one of the best slot corners in the NFL, and Garrett Williams. Right around 5'10", Max Melton, Sean Murphy Bunting. There's a type for JG, and they went over 6 foot. And I think at any point, again, you want to take a guy later on that's under 6 feet, I have no issue with that. The 16th overall pick on a guy who's 5'10" that was previously a slot corner, I let another team make that decision. I don't see the value for the Cardinals. Am I wrong?
I'm gonna be honest too, Johnny. Like, I had a higher grade on Garrett Williams than I had Jahdae Barron right now. Like, I had a higher grade on Williams coming out of Syracuse than and I really like the style of Jahdae Barron. Like, I like that archetype of corner. I like competitive, productive, instinctive, super tough, the versatility. Like, I usually like that archetype. Where I struggle with Jahdae Barron, I know he ran like in the 4.3s. Go find me one rep on tape where he looks like 4.3. You're not going to find it. Personally, I don't think I've watched him for 3 years now. I have not one time thought that that's what he was. I would say that he had, I think it was 9 career interceptions. He had 5 this year, so he had 4 in the previous 4 seasons. Was set to be a day 3 pick. Goes back, has 5 interceptions when he moves outside. 3 of the interceptions came in the 2 Georgia games. 2 of them were thrown right to his chest. 1 was a tip ball. Like, I think when you're looking at Barron, he is best in off coverage. He is a guy that short underneath zones. If you're going to play like a heavy amount of zone coverage, which they do certainly in Arizona, I think that could be a good fit for him. I never saw a guy that I felt comfortable saying like, yeah, he's going to be a high quality nickel corner. Much less like outside, but like a high quality nickel. I just never saw it personally. I've talked with scouts over the last couple of weeks, just kind of like running my thoughts by players. And I would say most of the people I've talked with have kind of shared my sentiment. Like, yeah, I'm not quite seeing the love that high in the draft, but look, it's one of those classes where we have to just kind of expect the unexpected.
Before we get to our local guys, our weekly chat about Scat in his official 40 time, I do want to look at their top 30 visits that we do have reported right now. So far, just 7. 4 edges included in this, starting with Shamar Stewart. We talked about Will Johnson, Anthony Belton. I really like your scouting reported on him. The offensive lineman from NC State. But like you got Femi Oladejo, who's moved to the edge, Princely Uman-Mielen, and then Nick Scorton.
Yep.
As far as these edges here, who do you think fits best for this Cardinals defense?
Just knowing like on field and off field, I actually really like the fit of Olufemi Oladejo from UCLA. This is a guy that's got position flexibility in that he was an off-ball linebacker, just moved to the edge. He's got all of like the off-field characteristics that I know JG like craves for in terms of like the leadership and the intensity. I mean, this was a guy that going down to the Senior Bowl. I'll be honest, I was low on him. You saw him make the move to defensive end to the edge for the first time this year, and it was a midseason move. Like it was a largely unexpected move. It happened like week 3, week 4, and he looked like a guy who had never played the position before. Like, he just didn't look great. He goes down there, and I was blown away. And it wasn't just like watching him, look how he wins this rep or wins that rep, but the best explanation I saw, it was, talking with a scout, and it was like, yeah, like he brought a middle linebacker's energy to the defensive line one-on-ones. Like he was like that leader, the fiery personality, like all of that. And he's an unbelievable kid off the field. Scouts and staff members that I've talked with at UCLA rave about him. So I think that all the intangibles there make a lot of sense. If they miss out on an edge rusher, in round 1, that's not a bad consolation prize. Now, the question is he going to make it to where the Cardinals are in round 2? There are some that feel like he could, go off the board sometime in the top 40, and that will be interesting to see there with Oladejo.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks. It's the local segment. I'll let Bo handle T-Mac here in a second with producer Damon, but a certain running back out of ASU ran a 40 last week. Not sure if you saw that or not. Made national news. Initially, it was reported. There was no media, by the way, Cam Scattaboo and ASU's Pro Day. It was initially reported, like people were saying, low 4.5s, then it went mid 4.5s, then it was low 4.6s, and then it came out, it was 4.65. So does that have an impact? And again, we've talked about it. I do feel like right now we're sitting here. Could he be a player where we're starting day 3 and he's still very much available? Because I thought if he had broken 4 4.6 after the combine he had and the juice that he had, I thought surely he'll go in the third round. Now I'm wondering, like, start at day 3. Is he a 4th round pick or lower to you right now, Fran?
Yeah, I mean, that's where, I mean, because remember, there was like 3 weeks ago when you asked me, like, Fran, what does he need to do? What does he need to run to get into the third round? And I was like,
I was asking the tough questions.
Yeah, I felt like he needed to be in the 4.5s.
Yeah.
And I expected him to be in the 4.6s. That was like, I would say that was probably like the median outcome. I would expect to, like, with training, like, all right, maybe he gets into the 4.5s. And I said last week, I was like, if it's in the mid 4.5s, that's like a 40th percentile amongst all running backs drafted in the last decade, right? So I'm not even saying like, oh, that's a great time.
Right.
That's a below average time. He goes 4.65. That's single digit percentile, right? And that's, I think, when you're looking at his breakaway speed, like, that's kind of what he is. I think that when you're looking at Cam Scottaboo, yeah, like, honestly, more than likely he's going to be there early day 3.
You think Cam Scottaboo can be a starting running back in this league?
Starting running back, I would say, like, in a committee in the right spot, he could. I mean, the one comparison I said, like, you don't make this comparison because they are different body types, but, like, James Conner was I believe a 4th round pick coming out of Pitt, went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he became a starter later in his career, right? I think when you're looking at Scottaboo, like, could he have a similar kind of path? He could. I just think that there are some limitations there from a physical standpoint, like athletically, that I would say, like, you probably want him more as like a change of pace, like, second guy in a backfield as opposed to that lead dog, even in a committee kind of situation.
Word on the street is Tedero McMillan doesn't watch tape, which could impact his draft status. In all seriousness, let's bring up the first 16 picks, Fran Duffy, from, I think, the Jags and the Las Vegas Raiders, who we pegged early that needed a receiver, now through Arizona. Who makes the most sense for Tedero McMillan out of U of A Wildcats, or is it a team not listed here?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, the earliest I would expect him now would probably be 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. It's just, again, kind of reading tea leaves. You read reports, from the media in terms of, like, the Daniel Jeremiahs of the world. And, obviously they're hearing that from people, right? And anytime I've talked with anybody about T-Mac, it's, yeah, he's a good player. But, how high are you going to take a guy with some of those limitations, from like a speed standpoint, from a separation standpoint? Drake London went in the middle stages, like kind of where we're talking about with T-Mac, and he showed a little bit more slippery movement, I think, when you're looking at his overall athletic profile. And so I think when you're looking at him, I would say the earliest is probably 12 to Dallas. Is that going to be Matthew Golden? Could it be T-Mac? Could they go a different position entirely? That I think is probably his ceiling at this point.
Daniel Jeremiah had him as wide receiver 4. You have him as wide receiver 3. Just for our audience who might not be dialed into your draft guide, how do you break down the wide receivers in this class?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at, at this group overall, for me, I look, Travis Hunter is kind of a unicorn in that, if he were a full-time wide receiver, he would be wide receiver 1 for me. I just think when you look at, and honestly, like, you could make the argument that his wide receiver tape is better than his corner tape. He's just so impressive physically. So you kind of put him to the side. We know he's going to go top 4. You put him off to put him on ice. To me, after that, I'm still a big fan of Luther Burden, guys. This is the wide receiver from Missouri, true junior. This guy has got dynamic playmaking qualities, outstanding with the ball in his hands. That also has that ability to be a proven deep threat as well. I know he's gotten beaten up over the process just because of the lack of production this year. Got basically cut in half. He had 86 catches for 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. It dropped to 61 and 576 and 11 yards a catch this past season. So when you're looking at him, the big knock on the field, on the film, is going to be like the route running prowess. I think that he showed plenty, honestly, last year, where I feel okay about it. I don't. It's an area where he's got to improve, but I just think that he has dynamic qualities that not everybody in this class has. After that, I think it's kind of beauty in the eye of the beholder there with T-Mac, Emeka Egbuka, and Matthew Golden. For me, I've got McMillan a little bit higher than the other two just because I feel good about his size and his ability to finish at the catch point. He's not as dynamic with the ball in his hands. I just think that I feel a little bit better about him than I feel about Egbuka just because of the size profile. And then with Golden, I know Golden ran really well. I know it's kind of like what I said with Jahdae Barron. Like, if you find me one clip where he runs 4.29 on film, that'll be the first time I've seen it. Right? I was blown away by that time in Indianapolis. Good player, but I don't think he's that kind of game breaker. I think he's more of like your, a guy that is, going to be a solid number 2 type, which is fine. That's important, but not a guy I'm taking that high in the draft.
Last question. We'll get you out of here on this. Assuming the Giants opt not to go with Shadeur Sanders, how far could he fall post Giants at 3? And like realistically speaking, who would take him given everything? There's talk about limitations as a thrower, that the power's not there, the off the field entourage. Like, what are you hearing about Shadeur Sanders if the Giants opt to pivot?
It's going to be one of the biggest stories of draft night, and it's going to be really fun to follow. Obviously, if you're the Arizona Cardinals, you're Monti Ossenfort and JG, you're hoping somebody takes them, right? You want another that just bumps another player down to Arizona in that spot. As we sit here, I'm kind of leaning towards him being on the board when the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock, like as we sit here on April 2nd. So, it's going to be fascinating. Yeah, the team that everyone's like, oh, like could they make that move would be New Orleans. They've openly come out and said that they are they're supporting Derek Carr as the starter. We'll see. Is that gamesmanship from a new coaching staff? It's the same personnel staff. Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland still there in New Orleans. They just drafted Spencer Rattler on day 3 last year. I don't think he did enough to say like, all right, we're going to keep him from drafting a young quarterback here early. That's going to be fascinating. If it's not New Orleans, then who? I don't know if there's another fit that really like hits you over the head there in the top 16.
Yes or no? Can Jackson Dart? Can he hurdle him?
I don't think so. I know there's been a lot of buzz about him going that high.
There's just one person that's saying it. We know that's not a reliable source, Fran, but you are, of course, our guy from ALLCITY, our NFL draft analyst. What's up, Fran? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just can't get there. I've tried multiple times, and look, it only takes one, right? We know that it only takes one. So we'll see what happens with Jackson Dart.
We got plenty more left with Fran Duffy. Of course, next week he'll join us as we're getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. The franchise mode, Fran Duffy. Make sure you're following along on Twitter as well. Check out his draft guide at gophnx.com. Thanks, Fran.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll talk next week.
Awesome stuff from Fran Duffy, per usual. We kept him around a lot, Johnny. But we got to run out the break. We'll get back. Of course, we get to everybody's super chats, and we'll also get to a couple other Daniel Jeremiah top 50 notables. All of that coming up. PHNX cards. Friends over at Pure Edibles here in Arizona, actually one of 130 dispensaries. That's where you can find them. You want to get on their full-fledged candy company that offers gummies, kicks like Starburst, chews that are soft candies like caramel, and hard candies. And the Pure effects clearly listed on each 10, so you know exactly what effects to expect. Pure offers gummies for sleep support. Also, they have them set up for you. Uplifting effects derived with unique cannabinoids such as CBN, CBG, CBD, marijuana derived from THC. They were actually concocted and began up there in Flagstaff, up by 17 at the Noble Herb Dispensary, now down here in Phoenix, calling it home in the big leagues. Pure gummies designed to be ripped, bit in half, making them easily shareable and easy to dial in that exact dose. So important to everybody who's dabbling in the gummies. If you're going to dabble in the gummies, check out our friends over at Pure Edibles in the one of the 130 dispensaries here in Arizona. Check out our friends over at Pure Edibles. Find them in that awesome 10 with the Pure effects right there, explicitly listed with the effects there on Pure Edible 10s.
Drop a like for Pure Edibles. Drop a like for our friends. Our presenting sponsor today, it's Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free. The new membership program. Save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. 3 cents per gallon every single day. Again, thirst has met its match. Download the app. So easy to get started. Just need your phone number, your email address, then you're ready to rock and roll, save money. There's Circle Ks everywhere. That means you should be saving money every single time you leave your home. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details. Want to welcome everybody on our many streaming partners jumping on over to GoPHNX.com. Big thanks to everybody because we are debuting. It's the 2.0 Big Five for Johnny Venerable and Bo Brack here on PHNX Cardinals. The 5 prospects we're dubbing worthy of pick 16 or worthy of the Cardinals pick. It's getting tougher to do this as we're whittling down some options, the new information that's made available. Who's in your Big Five? Well, here's ours. Big Five 2.0. 3 weeks out from the big dance, the NFL draft. Let's take a look. Derrick Harmon, who Daniel Jeremiah has as defensive tackle number 2. We know the Cardinals met with Derrick Harmon. I'd be shocked if he doesn't have a top 30 visit with the Redbirds coming up. The track record of Oregon defensive linemen in the first round is immense. Armstead, Buckner, etc. He's a guy that can penetrate at the line of scrimmage. He's a mountain of a man. He's in great shape, doesn't have bad body weight on him, and had a home run interview with the Cardinals meeting at the NFL Combine. And then it's Will Johnson, Bo, that we've highlighted, the outside corner from Michigan, which more and more now I feel like that's going to be the common name that you hear with this team until otherwise. Now, as Fran Duffy said, he could go as high as 9th to New Orleans. We'll keep an eye on that. We're also going to keep an eye on who do the Cardinals like at edge rusher. I think it's TBD right now. They've been working out, meeting with a lot of guys who we feel like could be trade down round 2 options, and Stewart and Scourton and et cetera. But I'm just going to go chalk here. We're going to go chalk. We'll go James Pierce out of Tennessee, Mykel Williams out of Georgia, not Jalen Walker, but Mykel Williams. And then lastly, the coup de grace, the top tackle for us, OT3, realistically speaking, was with Justin Fry a year ago, as Fran Duffy said on tape, easily one of the best players in this draft before the injury. It's Josh Simmons out of Ohio State.
Yeah, we tweaked it a little bit. Jalen Walker off the board. We'll see where he goes. A lot of people believe he's a top 10 pick. So Big Five here, we have a lot of criteria that goes into this conversation as far as who we think could be potentially there. Would the Arizona Cardinals be interested in him? I think Derrick Harmon is just going to be a mainstay on this all the way up to draft day.
Yes.
Could he be the pick? And I think that's going to be a big one with Harmon, is kind of making the fan base comfortable with that. But, having a guy, a ball knower, a legitimate ball knower like our guy Daniel Jeremiah, have him as his second best defensive lineman in this, or defensive tackle in this draft. Yeah. It's got to put you at ease a little bit to an extent. So I think from you got the guy that there's a lot of people believe is a consensus, fringe top 10 guy, Will Johnson. I think that's where, people have the comfort in that. James Pierce Jr. is somebody that I think, by this time next week could potentially be off the list. It's just depending on did the Cardinals bring him in for a top 30 visit. If that interest isn't shown to me, it kind of proves that the character issues were too much and the Cardinals just moving forward.
Yeah, you made a great point. You continue to do so. They show their hand with top 30 visits. If they want a guy early, they're going to bring him in. They brought in Paris and Marvin. Will Johnson took a top 30 visit because they're interested at pick 16, right? They got a lot of time to get these visits in. And how many top 30 visits do you get? You get 30, right? You get 30 visits. So we got how many? 6 or 7 on the record right now. If they don't bring in Mike Green or James Pierce or Walter Nolan, I'm with you. They're not realistic options. And that pains me to say this. I think Mike Green is the pure best edge rusher in this class, not named Abdul Carter. Yeah. But I don't think they're going to have any interest in drafting him. So he's not on the list, right? I think there's a chance he goes ahead of Arizona. James Pierce Jr., if you made him in a lab of what the Cardinals need and you just said Johnny and Bo pick, it would be him. But we don't know if they're interested or not. Could be a bad hang. Might not be a guy they want to bring in their locker room. Derrick Harmon, to me, and Will Johnson of that group right now are probably the 2 safest bets. I could see them taking Derrick Harmon at pick 16. It's not my preference. It might be a little rich for some people. It's a premium position for a guy who's rising up draft boards. I mean, is there a huge difference between pick 16 and pick I think Daniel Jeremiah? Let's look at it, Damon. Here are Daniel Jeremiah's notables from his top 50 today. I mean, Derrick Harmon's player number 23. If Will Johnson's gone and you're sitting there and it's I get Derrick Harmon at 23. Sure, it's a little rich, but it's a premium position. We love him. I'm not going to fight them on that, Bo.
No. No, and I think just it's a kind of convoluted as far as from draft analyst to draft analyst, how people rank them. But we know that the Cardinals like a guy like Harmon in 23 to 16 to where does it fit? The thing that Harmon does, or what it resembles to me, especially with the 3 additions up front, it's something that, and you can call them copycats, you can call them whatever. It's what Philly does.
Yeah.
They go and they take those big beefy dudes. They put regardless of the need. It's just like, it feels like, death taxes and the Eagles taking, defensive or line of scrimmage player in the first round. And that's just proof that it's worked for them. And you saw what it opens up for them, especially on the defensive side of the football, the ability to just rotate on the defensive line and then just rush forward. And then when it opens up for your secondary and the disruption it causes against opposing quarterbacks and the ability to put your defensive backs or linebackers in a position to get their hands on some balls.
I mean, like Jordan Davis, remember, was a top pick for the Eagles, was 13th overall a couple years ago. I mean, does anybody remember what Jordan Davis did as a rookie? No sacks, right? He was kind of up and down a little bit in 2022. It was fine, right?
Yeah.
But the Eagles have the infrastructure to say, hey, Jordan Davis, hey, Nolan Smith. Now, you're not going to come in here in red shirt, but you're not going to come in here like, let's not do what we did last year with Darius Robinson or B. Joe Ojulari the year before. Would it be the worst thing in the world for Derrick Harmon to say, okay, you're going to come in when you're ready, and we're going to get the best out of you, but Dalvin and Calais and Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais and Darius are going to play it.
Right.
And then you're going to earn your reps.
Or whoever.
You're going to earn your reps and come in it. Like Calais Campbell's probably on a 1-year contract for a reason, but could very well retire after this year. Dalvin Tomlinson after this year is year to year, right? Like it's okay to play it a year ahead when you have an influx of talent suddenly available, right? You're not in that position where it's dire, where you need your draft picks to come in and be all world beaters. That's okay. It's okay to stash him.
Right. And without like any like true obscene glaring needs remain.
Right.
Like preference is edge. Like this show is never going to get off its love affair with
who do they take? Right. Who do they like?
And that's the conversation. It's like this draft gives you the ability to address that in a similar fashion just later down the draft board.
The second round.
Yeah, in the second round. That really is gonna feel like the sweet spot. And then you got like Fran talking about Oladejo. I mean, that guy could be there in the third round, potentially fourth round for you, and like you could add that guy on top of it, but you get a guy like Derrick Harmon that's got his just who he is as a prospect, his projectables, and you put him in it. He's just playing in a rotational role. He's learning from the guy. Like then you've got something, I think brewing up front with the Cardinals.
Trade down if you're able to, and recoup a third and another pick, and you take him there. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better situation right now. I'll tell you what's not a good situation. It's what's brewing, potentially continues to brew out of Cincinnati. We got your super chats coming up, but we did want to note this today. Jordan Schultz last week said Trey Hendrickson trade request was dead. Well, somebody didn't tell Trey Hendrickson that as he went on Pat McAfee. Let's pull up the quote, Bo. The premier edge rusher, who, by the way, has had 35 sacks total the last 2 years combined, had this to say: when I say that the communication has been poor, I mean that it's been here and there. We don't have any desire to be the highest paid, and we've tried to be as patient as possible. So that he's been very cordial. But I think it was the Bengals. What was it? Their executive vice president. Yeah. Somebody went on either local talk radio or maybe it was at the owners meeting and basically showed no sense of urgency and was almost outright disrespectful of Trey Hendrickson, to the point that he went on McAfee and was like, you see what I have to work with, guys?
Right. Basically outlining, like, I want to be here. Right. I want to, like, who was it that retired? It was Sam, his fellow defensive lineman, just retired for the Bengals.
Right.
They got, a lack of leadership.
Sam Hubbard.
Hubbard. On that side of the football, he's like, I want to get into OTAs. I want to take this baton and run and continue to parlay my success in back-to-back seasons with 17.5 sacks in each of them. And I want to do that. He was also being very respectful to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as far as them getting their deal. He's like, if they just told me like, hey, we're putting you in the queue and we're going to take care of you. But he said that hasn't even been really expressed to him through the communication. I think the bulk of the communication is what he's seeing via like Jordan Schultz and the NFL insiders out there speaking on behalf of the organization. And it's just, he seems like he's a good guy that just wants, to be paid what he deems a respectable amount. Like he said, it's not Crosby money. It's not Myles Garrett money, but he feels like there's a number, and the Bengals just don't even seem to say like, okay, we'll get there, or this is where we're going to figure out when to do this.
Here's this horror show of a quote. This is from EVP Katie Blackburn, who's chatting with ESPN on the contract situation after paying the wide receivers on the team. This is her comments. She goes, quote, "He should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I think some of it is on him to be happy at some point. And if he's not, that's what holds it up sometimes. We have all the respect in the world for him. He's been a great player. We're happy to have him. And so maybe we'll find a way to get something to work." If I'm Trey Hendrickson, I'm done doing the Boy Scout routine.
Yeah.
I'm done being a good soldier. And listen, it may not be in his DNA. It's time to be an asshole, Trey Hendrickson. I would give this franchise the double middle finger. I would hold out, and I would make this uncomfortable for the next. You have a window of 3 weeks before this draft, and I would drag this franchise through the mud and get the fan base on your side, even more so, and I would get out of town. I mean that's an embarrassing quote.
That is as embarrassing as it gets as far as the NFL ranking. And then you probably hear some stuff, come out of Dallas and things like that. But
yeah,
I mean, to say to the guy who led the NFL in sacks, it's like, how much money do you really need? Like for that to be coming from a higher up, a person in power for the team that you've given basically an ultimatum, and they're like, well, I mean, like, really, how much do you, like, either take it or leave it, or are you going to find, like, is all that money really going to make you happy? It's like, it's not about that. It's about what my production and what the money should match. And that's just a boneheaded quote. It's unfortunate. But then there's like the conversation of like, does Trey Hendrickson and his representation at some point make this like, this is irreconcilable. Like we're not going to be able to find common ground here. And I just want out.
Go get your pick.
Does Monti Ossenfort, like, what's he willing to give up then? Do the Bengals lose the leverage? Like I look at this defense now and like adding a 30-year-old Trey Hendrickson, like I'm not going to say don't do it. Right. I think the guy 17.5 sacks. He's a monster. He's a war daddy. If you want to pull off a trade for that. But I do see like more of a realistic idea of getting younger at that. And in order to do that in this draft class is to hold on to your draft capital. And unless something really just kind of makes, sense for Hendrickson.
The Cardinals have added over $100 million potentially in payroll with Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Josh Sweat.
Yeah.
If everybody plays out their contract to max capacity. Sweat got 76. Calais got 5 that could turn into 7. Tomlinson got, what did he get? Almost $30 million. So
29.
I might say the ship has sailed, but listen, pick 47. You interested? Going to be a good pass rusher there for you. Reset that clock.
Let's start. Do you hear what they're dealing with? Like, does that sound somebody that speaks like logically in the NFL? Like, 17.5 sacks. How much money do you need? Like, that's not a logical person.
Kate, take this pass rusher from Boston College. You won't have to pay him a dime. You'll love it. Cheap labor, second round. It'll be great.
We even have a safety we could toss their way too. I know Cardinals fans love doing that.
Saw it already today in the chat.
Sweetener, Jalen Thompson. We're going to get to your sweeteners here. It's super chat time. Drop a like on this video. We got almost 900 watching live. Kick things off with our guy, Kyle Haley, $20. Unbelievable. Thank you, Kyle, for the support on that level. Repping his Cardinal sweatshirt with his daughter, it looks like. Awesome stuff. What's up, Bo and Johnny? Did you guys see the clip of Brian Schottenheimer talking about Kyler not wanting to run? We did see that.
Yeah.
In relation to Clayton Adams talking about that, Bo.
I really didn't understand why Brian Schottenheimer said that. What did he benefit from saying that? The reporter was asking, Clayton Adams' offense benefited from Kyler Murray supplementing the run game, right? Do you expect Dak Prescott to run more? And Brian Schottenheimer opens up his answer with, the thing about Kyler Murray is he didn't like to run that much. And he would tell like Clayton Adams and the coaching staff going into games, sometimes he didn't want to run. I didn't understand why Brian Schottenheimer would say something like that, what it context he added to the answer. It just was a boneheaded response, in my opinion.
You mean the guy who shouldn't be maybe even a coordinator is saying
the
things?
Thing about Brian Schottenheimer is he's just not a good football coach. Correct. That's what I think.
Listen, Kyler Murray knows that the longevity in his career comes from where? Being a not traditional pocket passer, but a guy who wants to throw first. And I've always respected that. I know a lot of people are like, he can't play the quarterback unless he runs. I think he has a maneuverability in the pocket that's an elite style of play. And if he wants to take off like against the Niners or Chargers, let him do that. I would much rather have Kyler Murray stand in the pocket and throw darts and extend his career. I don't want him running a bunch like his second year in the league, because guess what happened? Last year was the first year he played all 17 games. Right. So no, I think that's
he averaged over 7 yards per carry. And I think he was still he wasn't running nearly as much as Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels and who else, and Lamar Jackson. But
the guys that are like 6'5".
Yeah, he's still right around the top 5 as far as quarterback carries, and he does it efficiently. And I think that to your point, especially it always happens with dual threat quarterbacks. It's at some point he's got to be able to rely on his arm, and that's the smart play. That you would take the pass over having to get out and scramble. For Kyler Murray, for that to come out of Clayton Adams, who was a direct beneficiary of Kyler Murray and how he supplemented that run game and how it put Clayton Adams into a position to be an offensive coordinator. It doesn't make sense why that was said at the coaches' meetings in Florida.
Big dummy. Good job. 199. Thank you so much, Kyle, for that super chat on that level, by the way, my guy. New diehard here. Hello. See you at the draft party. Hell yeah. Good job. Tag us on Twitter if you would. If you have not done so already, welcome. Perfect plug. We got almost 1,000 people watching right now. Appreciate you. Good job. Good job on you. Let's take a look. The draft party. 3 weeks from tomorrow. Do I have my math right? 3 weeks from tomorrow, the NFL draft.
Far away. Really. That's how I view it. It's not tomorrow. And then it's too far away. It's April 24th, Thursday, the Upper Deck Kitchen and Bar at our beloved Gila River Resorts and Casinos at Wild Horse Pass, right there off the I-10, presented by our friends over at Circle K. You get your tickets today. It's going to get you 3 drink tickets. It's going to get you all you can eat food, and it's going to get you the most unbelievable vibes that you've ever experienced celebrating your favorite football team, the Arizona Cardinals. PHNX Cardinals, the entire crew, this trio, Johnny, Damon, myself, and the entire PHNX sports squad will be out there, have giveaways. We don't know just yet, but we should probably have some special guests. Can't wait for it. Lock in your tickets today.
Frank Rodriguez, $5. I would like to trade down and draft Donovan Ezaraku, the edge rusher from Boston College. Well, the production's elite. I think he had 16 sacks this year. I think he's in the mix, Frank, with a bunch of guys. What are you laughing at? My pronunciation?
Look at you, man.
Yeah, he just ripped that thing, huh?
What in the hell happened? I guess when Johnny just rips the Band-Aid off, he does a pretty solid job.
Donovan Ezaraku, my dear friend, I'm prepping for his Cardinal debut. Just don't ask me to do JT's last name. But speaking of he's in a group of guys that it's 25 to 45. Then you're in the mix suddenly. You're not taking them at 16. You're not taking them probably top 20. We almost need a big board just for the edge rushers to pearl clutch, and who are we getting and where are we getting them? Because again, it's everybody else and then the edge rushers. And if your name's not Jalen Walker, who supposedly is a done deal, he's going to be a Carolina Panther. We'll see. And Abdul Carter second to the Cleveland Browns. It's Michael Williams now is not worth a top 20 pick, according to Daniel Jeremiah. It's this is a dicey proposition here.
And Carolina, they're just spilling all their beans to Kay Adams.
Kay Adams, you want to see the draft board we've got? Did you see they said they were we love DK Metcalf. We were going to trade for him, Kay. It's what is you guys run a serious operation? It's I'm sitting down with Kay Adams. Hey, do you want my social security number? What can I do? My bank information?
Not a good look for a head coach whose wife wrote a book about infidelity.
Yeah, he had some addictions off the field that were. I mean, it's like, come on, pump the brakes here. That's not what we want. Carolina Panthers.
Oh man, let's keep it going. Hey, would you like to see our entire draft board?
Kay's like, yeah, let's just do it's Up and Adams with the Panthers draft board.
We're here, live from the Carolina Panthers war room. It's Up and Adams with Kay Adams.
It's like their betting partner, the exclusive. Here's their big board. Idiots. Big crack in the back, $2. We talked about this. Thoughts on Trey H on McAfee. Seems upset with Cincinnati. Sometimes you just have to go. I almost read that as Triple H, WWE legend Triple H. Now it's like, I need Trey Hendrickson to pull a Triple H and be an ultimate heel. Go out there, start giving, you take a break from all the charitable work and go into the Cincinnati front office and start doing the suck it to the Cincinnati Bengals and say, I'm doing my DX suck it and I'm ready to get out of this franchise. Send me to Arizona. That's what I think that he should do. I don't know if he's got it in him. Sometimes some of us can be heels. I don't know if Trey Hendrickson can be a heel. Man,
the era we grew up in professional wrestling, and that was acceptable. That move.
Be in the third grade.
Johnny on the playground. Just DXing people. Come on, man. Class it up. You act like you've been there when you're scoring a touchdown on the playground. Dad's drinking again. $4.99. Let's see.
How you feeling about this one, Bo?
I'm gonna have to read it. Let's see. Wow.
But Damon can do this one. Damon, can you do this?
Saludos desde Cabo, disfrutando mi vacaciones en Baja California con un michelada mirando PHNX podcast.
Yes.
Vamos Cardinals.
Woo! How about it? Damon.
Bilingual.
Basically saying salute from Cabo. It's on vacation, and he's drinking what michelada, that's a mix of what, tomato juice and beer.
Yeah, it's like clamato and beer. Yeah. Watching our pod. This is the number one bilingual Cardinals podcast out there.
Damon's carrying a lot of weight with that bilingual label. That's that U of A education. That was impressive, Damon.
That was beautiful. CBK jumping in $5. Our best pass rusher, our best pass protector is Paris, and he's 27th at his position. Need a lot more investment in O-line, starting bringing Will back.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man. And I think that's PFF listing Paris at 27. I think Paris is the top 12, 15 tackle in the NFL.
As far as left tackle, I think he is. Yeah, and they include right tackle as far as their breakdown, but might be looking at different rankings. This is going to be an organization that always wants to invest in the offensive line. They're not. They're going to do it. But is there going to be a prospect at 16 that's worthy of that pick? Like when we talk to Fran Duffy about, Kelvin Banks, that doesn't give me any confidence about taking Kelvin Banks Jr. It's a guy that has to play strictly left tackle, and then you put Paris Johnson Jr., you move him from his true position back to one where I think he struggled a little bit in his rookie year. I don't think that's your best setup for success on the offensive line. But if you start to look at Josh Simmons, if you start to look at, Arante Ursi in the second and third round, you can get me on board with that. And I don't think that the Cardinals are not going to invest in the offensive line.
They're going to get a tackle. They'll get a tackle. Shortstop Goblin, speaking of the choir, 199, 16 should be an offensive tackle. Jonah is in the future. Where is Jonah Williams? Where in the world is Jonah Williams post Carolina Panther game? Is he healthy? I trust Kelvin Beachum. By the way, it's great. You're going to get Kelvin Beachum and Calais Campbell in the same locker room again. Just a couple old heads. Yeah. If there was a tackle that checked all the boxes at 16, sign me up. But I love Josh Simmons, the prospect, but listen to Fran talk about his injury situation. That's a concern for me. I don't like Josh Simmons could be great on the field, but if he's not healthy or you got concerns that knee's not going to hold up, I don't want to say degenerate knee, but that's an injury that it probably does not warrant a top 20 selection. When you look at the tackles that went top 20 last year, and Mims and Fatnu, it's just a different caliber of class. We love to connect the dots with Justin Fry, and if they want him, go get him. But I think Will Johnson, why that name has caught fire is because if he's available, it's the least amount of questions for a premium player and a premium prospect. That's what we have to talk about now. Between now and the next 3 weeks, who's the best player available with the least amount of questions at a premium position? That's who they should take. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is.
Nacho Libre saying Damon invited to the carne asada. Congrats, man.
Appreciate it. I've been invited to a few over my time. Tucson, stand up.
Stand up, Tucson. Green guy Castro saying Walter Nolan's that guy. I love Walter Nolan. I think he's a top 20 player. I think he's a top 15 player. But there's questions about him off the field. This class, you're rolling the dice, man. And that's why I like Derrick Harmon. Are we dressing up a back half of the first round player? Maybe, but Ossenfort has also shown, Bo, with these guys that they take, at least for the first 2 years, safe is a word that we're going to throw around a lot.
Yeah.
Darius was safe. Marv was the safest. Harris was safe. Max Melton was safe. They loved his character. Like, they want guys. Tip Ryman, Isaiah Adams were safe. They have not shown to take anybody who's got a lick of not a great dude.
Dad's drinking again, chiming back in, $4.99, and we snuffed this out. We sniffed it out. I'm impressed, Damon. Laughing my ass off. Just wanted to see Johnny and Bo fumble it, laugh out loud on my vacation watching the best Cardinal podcast. Thank you, Dad's drinking. I really appreciate it. But yeah, it's gonna take a little bit more to fool us. We of course just pawned this off on our guy Damon.
I could never. How fluent Damon was drinking that. I'd still be trying to read it 5 minutes later. It was
like
rough.
You're still recovering from Ezeraku. I think that like you expended all your energy in getting the Boston College pass rusher's name correct.
That's pretty good. If nobody had ever watched that show and saw me read that super chat, they'd be like, "This guy's sharp. This guy's got it."
Man can only give so much.
That's right. I'm a late inning reliever. I got a couple fastballs and that's it. 900 watching live here on a football Wednesday. Big thanks to our guy Fran Duffy. Drop a like here on the show. Yeah, we got our guy Short Stack Goblin. He wants a tackle. We'll see. We'll see if a tackle's worth taking at 16. I'm going to tell you what's worth it. It's coming to our draft party. We plugged it. Get in on the action now. Tickets are going fast. Become a diehard. You're going to get 20% off, which, again, all you can eat buffet, 3 drink tickets. We want to see you there. We got so much good stuff going on. We're going to be at the draft party. We're going to be at Dobson Ranch in a couple weekends. We may or may not have a softball game to attend in the month of May. So much good stuff going on right now. We want to have you a part of it. Bo, myself, Damon, we want to see you there tomorrow. Mike Garofalo joins the show again. So everybody do me a favor. Not in the comments. When the show is over, drop a comment in below. Not the chat, but the comments after the show. Give us a question you want for Mike Garofalo. We'll collect them. We'll take the best with the most amount of likes and engagement, and we will pose them to the NFL Insider Bowl.
Yeah, that along with what we're going to ask, like how Calais Campbell, how this came to be, how it materialized. Are we planning on playing in the golf event? I am, absolutely. Ready to hit the links a week from Saturday out there at Dobson Ranch, Rudy. So, yeah, get in.
What big Cardinals news is going to happen, Bo?
Oh, I know, and that's a week from Saturday. It's possible. Last time I played in our PHNX golf event, team outright released DeAndre Hopkins, so I had to cut my round short. Hopefully not going to experience the same breaking news, but you never know with this team. But yeah, Rudy, we will definitely be there.
I'm going to be there, not golfing.
Yeah, Johnny's going to be my caddy. He's already signed up for it.
I'm going to hang with my real friends like Coach Starks, and I'll probably just sip on a White Claw like a true
So
man.
You're going to be Coach's caddy?
He's sponsoring a hole. He's sponsoring a hole, so I'm just going to go bum around. I'm supposed to help with something, but I'm actually just going to bail on that and go hang out with Coach Starks, I think, is what I'm going to do. I think that's appropriate.
Last year, I was a golf cart guy, Johnny, and it was the best gig you could possibly have. I'm doing everything I can to get the same exact gig this year.
That sounds like a job I'd be good at. Like, we're going to give Johnny a cart for 2 hours, and then I'll just go around and I can hobnob. How about that?
Literally what I did. Hey, you guys good? Hey, are you guys good?
Perfect.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Oh, you need water? Okay, I'll be right back.
That's my shift. 4 to 6, hobnobber, hello guy. We're gonna have a great time. But regardless, we got so much good stuff coming out. What you got to do, you got to like and subscribe. We are barreling our way toward 40K for the Little Fanboy Podcast that could. Yeah, Rudy's got his foursome. Right now, everybody go get your draft tickets. Become a diehard today. We will make it worth your while. I promise. I promise. I promise. Can't wait to party with all of you. For Bo, Damon, I'm Johnny Venerable. Garofalo tomorrow on a Football Thursday. Until then, we'll see you.
We all silly like the mayor.